Bro, you want to talk a little bit more about that? Like what's going on with how we determine demographic boosts and how we go about
I
understanding how they
I
operate?
got I got into this, and the idea of going to this was kind of stemming from the last election when we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, bro, I'm stuck out here freaking being too intellectual about stuff and reading up on stuff and just like researching and looking at policy and all that kind of crap. When like, but really, people out here voting on vibes. Remember, I said that
Mm-hmm.
people voting on how they feel. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the economy is doing these great numbers. These job numbers looking good, but that's not what Americans voting on. Americans voting on how do I feel, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the economy's bad. So Biden bad, Kamala bad. You know what I mean? Democrats bad. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how they ended up voting for Trump. Like, because it's all about vibes.
Mm-hmm.
This feeling of vibes is pervasive in a bunch of different ways through our society.
Mm-hmm.
In this study that I'm going to read from, many Americans they come to the conclusion that many Americans overestimate the size of small subgroups like minority populations, Muslims, or millionaires, for example, within the U.S. population. The overestimation is driven by psychological biases, right?
Mm-hmm.
The phenomenon is linked to uncertainty based rescaling. This is so uncertainty based rescaling. I'm gonna say it slow. It's a cognitive bias where individuals adjust their population estimates towards the average when unsure about actual numbers. So this causes a misperception, and this misperception persists even when people are part of that group.
This is why the media is important.
Well, they could do a lot of work helping or
Or they
hurting.
can do a lot of damage.
Could do a lot of
Because
damage to this joint.
that's what I was actually saying.
I want to. Did you click the link? I want to explore some of these
Yeah,
charts
I'm
with you.
looking at it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Some of these charts with you. And so, like, if you look at this big first one,
Mm-hmm.
right? This big first chart there. There's a lot of difference between like what. Look at this. When you look at okay, the first one on their list, you're asking Americans to estimate, right? So you're just walking down the street, see somebody. I want you to estimate how many millionaires, how many households have an income of $1 million in the United States.
Oh,
People guessed 20%.
20% of
When
people
when the
believe that.
number is have a household income of 1 million is the number is so small on
Mm-hmm.
this chart it says zero because it's point something something,
Yeah, it's point something. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The very next question: how many people you walking down the street, you bump into somebody? How many transgender people do you think there are in America?
Mm.
Jeff, if I was to ask you that, how much would you have guessed before you saw this?
Before I saw that, I would have.
Transgender people in America.
Because I've heard the numbers quite a bit. I would have guessed less than 2%. That's kind of because only because I've heard the numbers prior to reading this article, right?
Hmm.
Um,
So, but
but
what are
but but
people
even but
guessing in the
even
streets?
but even well, yeah, people in the streets will think it's more than that.
But
They
okay,
think
I know what I'm saying, but
yeah,
I'm asking you, what does the
yes.
chart say?
So the chart says 21%, which is egregious. That is actually egregious, right? Even if I didn't even have the numbers, I wouldn't even think that naturally in my head that it would be that high, right?
Yeah,
Probably
21%.
like
Yeah.
probably like
21%.
20% is crazy. That means you're telling me one out of every five people you run into. That's come on, y'all. Like we gotta be better than that. Like even I didn't think that naturally prior to all like prior to all the information that's out there. Like just naturally thinking about
It's
it, I still wouldn't even think.
transgender.
Yeah, I
And
still
so,
wouldn't even think that high.
was
Yeah,
there any like crazy one that jumped out to you on here that you're like, yo, people was wilding, or
that
maybe like
that
you
that was
thought
one of them. That was one
that
of
was one
them.
of them?
That was one of them. What's another one that I thought was kind of wild?
Here's this one. Here's one. This one I like. How many, Jeff? If I told you, don't look at it. How many people do you? What percentage of American population are atheists? What would you have guessed?
That's an interesting one.
What would you have guessed?
um,
American
honest
populations.
of
Hey,
American
hey, hold on,
population.
hold on, hold on, hold on. Let me put some sauce on it. Let me put some sauce
Mm,
on it. Now remember, you can't even say Christmas anymore, Jeff.
mhm.
Remember that? Remember that? This is a country
Uh-huh.
where you're taking the prayers out of school,
Mm,
Jeff,
mm,
right? This
Mm.
is the country where like, oh, these men is marrying men,
Yeah.
right? You see, oh, we
Yeah.
need to we need to put the Ten
Yeah.
Commandments in school.
Yeah.
This is a country where we're saying that crime is going up. You know what I mean? There's
Mm.
no more morality,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So that's the sauce that y'all be giving it to
Mm.
each other. So remember, that's the sauce that you
Giving it to
random
each
you
other is
walk up
crazy. Yeah.
random, but that's the background noise that's going
That's what people
on
be.
in
Yeah.
our
People.
daily
Yeah.
freaking society.
That's true. That's
So
true.
what would you have
You hear
guessed
them narratives.
in America is the
It's,
percentage of Americans that are
mhm,
atheists?
mhm. Now, I will say I do find certain states that I think are weird places that I would never live in. Um, but as far as answering the, and that's kind of that's one of the drivers of what I'm of how I'm gonna answer this, right? But I would say without looking at the chart, I would say in my head, I think I would probably say like around there are actual atheists, like people that believe there's nothing, um,
That
at all.
that don't
I would say
mean that's okay.
no, what? Because okay, okay,
That's interesting.
atheist,
That's
atheist
interesting. That's interesting too because the word atheist is people
is
that
more of like
identify as atheists.
non-believing. It really it just really means like
Right, but that's why.
non-believing.
But I was going
Yeah,
to give you credit and say that two. I was going to give you credit in two ways. One is that you have to ask the individual how do they
how you
express
define
atheism for
atheism?
themselves? How do
Yeah.
they define it for themselves?
Hmm.
But what I give you credit for is that we're asking a random Joe Schmo on the street
Yeah.
about what they think about, what I mean, hey,
Hmm.
atheists. For them,
Hmm.
what's most people think they don't believe in nothing.
They don't believe in nothing. Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
so
true.
so that you're right. So that's a proper way to
Yeah,
assess it as
that's
if it
true.
was that. So what was your number? Our
I would
atheists.
say so in my head,
You would have guessed.
I would have guessed anywhere between 25 and 35%. That's what I would have guessed naturally.
Yo,
I'm not gonna
yo,
lie.
I would love to live in that country. I would
I bet.
love.
I bet.
I wish that
I
was this
bet.
country. Bro,
Like in
we'd
my
have our flying cars already. We'd be out
that's
here
crazy.
already. Bro, oh my God. Bro, well,
But
everybody would have an
yeah.
extra 20 years of life if you
Hmm.
wanted to. The
Hmm.
new 50 would really be
Hmm.
the new what is it? What the 50 is the new 30? Is that a good way to put it? Like you're 50 years old, but like you really only look
That's kind of
30.
crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You only look 30.
that's kind of crazy.
Bro, that'll be so. But y'all don't want that. Y'all don't want us. Bro, the joint
But you know
is
what?
3%.
Yeah, 3% is crazy. But you know what I'll say?
3%.
You know
Y'all
what I'll say
really
about
out here
that though?
thinking atheists is running around like that?
Low key, I really yeah, for sure. Low key.
Oh
But
my
you
bad.
know,
So I didn't say the other number before it says the number is 3%.
mhm,
The average person gets 30%. So you were on par.
yeah, yeah. So
It's
I
really
would,
only 3%.
but I would say this because I think this is kind of interesting actually. Is there any place in the world that there would even be a percentage of that high as far as atheists?
Atheism?
Yeah, because
Atheist?
atheist like atheism in general
Yeah,
because
there's
you go to different parts of the world, it's not necessarily atheism, they just believe in different gods, right? So it's not like you know what I'm saying, but
right,
like
but the question is for atheism. Right, for
like
atheism. Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
So
Is there any
there
other place in the world you think that the number could even be at a place like where it's like 20-30%?
so
Like what do
I
you think?
think so. I think maybe some of these Scandinavian
But they believe in gods too though, they just have their own like
but that's the population. We're talking about the percentage of atheists. That is a
mm,
level of 20%. That's the
mm.
question.
Oh yeah,
You didn't say
yeah.
that you ain't talking about the other 80%. The 80
Mm.
other 80% could believe in Christmas or whatever that other thing is.
Christmas, yeah. Krampus, or whatever his name is.
Christmas,
Yeah.
whatever that joint is.
Yeah. No,
Uh
but go ahead.
so it said in
I was curious about
so in
that.
2014,
Hmm.
in 2014 there was a survey done in Vietnam that said about 13% of Vietnamese are atheists. Oh, actually,
Hmm. That's actually surprising to me.
they're atheists. Now in Australia they asked the question and 40%,
Oh,
but
Australia
they didn't say atheists, they said no religion.
said no religion.
They
Okay, so
said
they're
no
probably more
religion.
agnostic than anything.
Yeah, they didn't who's but there's they list China here, but
Mm,
they don't even have the number for China. So there's some places that
that's
are like,
interesting.
that
Okay.
that are definitely like that. So
Mm.
that was interesting. So what wasn't one that you said that you found interesting for yourself that was
Oh,
like a big thing that you're like, oh man, I didn't.
um, what was I gonna say? It was what was the one that I just one of the things. Oh, have flown on a plane. I thought that was interesting.
Oh yeah,
right?
what is that one?
Like so that one's all like almost all the way at the bottom, right? I definitely was like on the end of that same spectrum where I was like, everybody's been on a plane. Who hasn't been on a plane, right? Like it's a plane. Like this is America. I was
That's true.
like, yo, like,
Yeah,
like, like you know what I'm saying? But then like when I saw the numbers, like
yo,
really 59%? Like I
only
was like,
59% have been on a plane
have been on
in
a plane
2024.
in 20. That's what I'm saying, bro. That's why I was like, really? That
Yo,
so that one surprised me. That one
but
actually
hey,
surprised
that
me.
means low key, like those of us that have done that, like
Mm,
that's position, that's privilege. There's like a bunch of
mm,
different reasons you're on the plane. It's to be able to like use that as a mode of transportation for anything.
mm,
Especially someone that do it for fun.
mm. Oh well,
And
yeah,
some of these
yeah,
people have never even done it for like
yeah.
for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
Never been on a plane in 2024, 2024. Okay, and I'm assuming they're not counting babies and stuff like that
Yeah.
on that
But
joint.
59% is still kind of like surprising to me though.
Yeah.
That's still like I was definitely like I was like at least 90%. I was like, but really 59? But yeah, I was that's one of the ones that surprised me.
So the
Um
one that the one the couple a couple ones that are really close that people got right are you guessing okay how many percentage of the country that are married, right? And that number was between 51% and 55. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
you
that
ask somebody on
yeah,
the street, how many people in
kind of
America you
spot
think
on.
are married? I think 50% of people are married,
Yeah,
and they got it
I would
about
have said
right.
around there. Yeah, I would have
They
said
got it
that.
about right.
Mhm.
About the passport one was not that far off. How many
Mhm.
people do you think have a passport? Some folks said a lot of people said 45% when the actual number is 37%
Mhm.
have a passport.
Mhm.
So that's pretty close. We get our perceptions right on that. But that
Mhm.
the major one, another major one though is like the gun thing. How many people do you think have a gun? 54% people think people they out here thinking that 54% of people have guns, and it's really only 32% that have guns
Yeah, yeah,
in this
I
country.
yeah, I thought that I had that number in my head. Like I was like I think the third of the country is probably gun
Mm-hmm.
owners. Yeah, I kind of had that. What do you think about the ones that are Democrats and the ones that are Republicans?
So those were pretty close, spot on, right? I think those are
Yeah.
pretty. So it says like, are Republicans? That one's from 47% to 50%. So people guessed about right.
Mm-hmm.
They're about right. So especially if you're out there, you think you got to. I would have always. I think half the country is Republican, and like you ask Republicans, they probably think half the country is Democrats. They
Mm.
well, I don't know. I wonder if you ask Republicans, they would say. I think the Republicans think the country is more um Republican, especially when you look at the electoral map. But the thing is, the electoral map shows a lot of land area. It doesn't show
Yeah.
population
Yeah.
size
Yeah. That's true.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. So,
Mm.
but I think a lot of people in their head, they have that electoral map in their head, and they see
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of red, and so they might think that the country is probably skewed way more um, uh, right Republican
Mm-hmm.
than Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of these other things that were surveyed, it was interesting again to talk about the percentage of the people within the populations that's guessing the wrong thing about their own population.
Mm-hmm.
Black Americans estimate that an average that black people make up 52%.
That's crazy. I
52%.
can't believe that, bro.
These
I was
niggas
like, what?
really thought half the country was black.
My guy, if that was the
More than
case, this will
half.
be if that was the
More
case,
than
this will be a
half.
whole different country.
Whole different country, bro.
Whole
You're in
different
South Africa
country.
somewhere. You
Yeah.
crazy?
I was like, are you
Black
dumb?
people thought this.
Crazy, bro. That's wild. That's wild, bro.
Non-black Americans
Mhm.
estimate that the number is 39%. That's still kind
Bro,
of crazy.
that's still wild, bro.
When the real number is
It's like
12.
12, it's 12%. Yeah. Yeah.
Yo, these
People,
niggas be
people,
acting
people
like they
were,
see niggas everywhere.
bro. People were trying to put some sauce on it and try to like, they're like,
What?
well, the number is really 40%. Nah, man. It's really about like 12% for real.
It's
Like it's
12%. We
really, yeah,
really not
that's
out there like
actually,
that. Like
yeah,
when you
really not
talk
out there,
about
bro. Like,
the black men that voted for Trump or
mm,
or even the Latino men that voted for Trump or something like gotta remember that population in and of itself is a small
it's a
population to
small
begin with.
population,
So
bro.
when you do
Like, yeah,
percentages, it might look
yeah.
like a lot for that population.
Mm,
But bro, it's the country, like we're only 12% of the entire country.
the
This
entire
is
country,
crazy.
bro. Yeah.
For even black people to think that.
Mm.
For even
Yeah,
black people to think
that's kind of wild to me. I was like, come on, like, y'all got to do better. Like,
yeah.
come on, man.
I So I found that interesting. I think folks should go check it out. This is at yougov.com.
Mm.
And you can find up this article is titled "From Millionaires to Muslims, Small Subgroups of the Population Seem Much Larger to Many Americans." And so to Jeff's point about how the media can make these kinds of numbers like in your head, like really skew the numbers in your head, is because you'll see something like, yo, every time I'm watching the news and I see some crime thing happen, it's a black person I see that's doing some
Yeah.
crime thing. So I'm thinking like these niggas is everywhere, and I think I'm finna get robbed. I think danger is
Yeah.
everywhere. You know what I
Facts.
mean? And like so
Facts.
they could be in my backyard. So you automatically think that it's the prevalence is happening a lot more than it is. Um if you see the Florida man always on the news doing some Florida man
What's
stuff,
up?
you're gonna be
Throwing,
thinking like all of Florida is just like
yeah.
that. You're gonna be like, you're gonna be thinking, oh, like the vast majority of Florida is like that. Because you see
Mm.
it all the time. Like, yeah, it might not be all
Yeah.
Floridians, but you're gonna think a lot of Floridians are crazy. A lot of
Yeah,
Floridians are
yeah,
crazy.
people in Florida
But
are not just walking around with gators in their truck,
in their
throwing gators
trunk,
in
dog. Like,
throwing gators in
yeah.
fast food windows. They're not. That's not a regular occurrence.
Yo, they really thought 27% of Americans are Muslim when really the number is 1%.
That's actually really shocking. Like, what?
They thought
That's
30%
really shocking.
are Jewish when it's really 2%.
Mm.
So when we have something that's going on like the Middle East
People really have
conflict happening right now,
skewed perceptions. Yeah.
people can have this like when they say, "Oh my goodness,
Ah.
these Muslims are
Yeah.
doing this thing over there," and
Yeah.
there's 27%
And
of
there's.
our population is made up of these
Hmm.
Muslims. They could be doing when you think of you talking about Al Qaeda, we talking about these
Hmm.
terrorism, and so it's easy for you to like demonize your neighbor who may be Muslim
Hmm.
because you think there's so much of them that they're actually taking over your country.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
1% of the population,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
it's just some perspective.
Hmm.
It's fun with numbers, but
But this is why people need to see the numbers. That's the thing.
but they don't even matter. This don't even matter
Mm.
what I'm talking about right now because they still finna go on vibes. They still finna go on vibes. They feel like
Which is what this
it's an
segment is about.
invasion coming
It
from our
is all
southern
vibes.
border. They just
Yeah.
feel like it's an invasion,
Yeah. It
even
feels
though
like that.
the most people have gotten deported since ever. Right?
Mm. Mm.
Obama was called the deporter in
The
chief
port
at
in
one
chief.
point.
Yeah. He was going
Oh,
crazy.
and like,
Yeah.
but then y'all still make the vibes as if like Obama did not have the border under control. So y'all like it. It's the vibes. It's the vibes. Numbers don't matter.